Rachel here, back with another tutorial for adult coloring books. Today we're going to be talking about color, and I have a new tool to show you, and I'm also going to be showing you how to take inspiration for your color palettes from everyday objects, such as my scarf. Head over to my desk with me and I'll show you how we did it. Alright, for today's page we are going to actually use my scarf as our inspiration for our color palette. So what I've done is I've actually taken my handy dandy little cheat sheet that I got from justcoloring.com, and what I've done, basically this is the 60 pencil set for the Faber-Castell Polychromos, and I have filled them all out and I've kind of lined them up with the colors here in the scarf. And this is what I've ended up with, these colors right here. And for you guys, I've put together my own little cheat sheet for the colors that we're going to use. So not only the number, the Faber-Castell pencil name, and then a little bit of practice colors, but I've also provided the Prisma alternative, just in case you guys don't have the Faber-Castell, you can use the Prismacolor alternative. So what I've done here is I've basically taken all my colors and I've just kind of shown what they look like using different pressures. So with the light, just to kind of show you guys, I'm going to take this Pink Matter Lake color that we're going to use, and I'm just going to do a really light coat, and just to make it even easier for you guys, just to not be so heavy-handed, hold the pencil back here, and then you can just kind of use that flat edge, and you'll get just a nice little light foundation there. And then for medium, you want to use just medium pressure, and you'll see I even moved my fingers up a little bit closer to the tip. And this is what it looks like using medium pressure. And then dark, and you can again move your fingers up. And then what you can do throughout your coloring is actually use this as your guide. So if you think that you want to color a certain part, maybe a pink, but you're not quite sure which one or how much pressure to apply, you can kind of use these as your guide, and you can even keep like a little cheat sheet next to you where you can try out, like let's say we're gonna do one base coat of a light foundation of the Pink Matter Lake, and then we're gonna go over it with this Rose Carmine. You can kind of use your cheat sheet to kind of see what that would look like. I really like doing this just so I don't screw up, because honestly, I've chosen bad colors, so if I don't kind of pick my colors out beforehand and then I just kind of go by the seat of my pants, I've chosen wrong colors, and I've actually kind of ended up trying to cover them up with other colors, or basically being unhappy with the finished product. So if you do just a little bit of prep work in the beginning, you can kind of come out with a little bit more of a drawing that you're happy with. So let's go over to the page and we can get started. So today we're going to use our inspiration scarf on this page, and it's the Wherever Life Plants You, Bloom with Grace page from Joyce Blooms to Color, this book right here. And I've chosen it, one, because I think it'll nicely highlight the colors that we've chosen. There's a lot of different flowers here, and we can kind of use these colors, in a widespread way. And then also, this is a phrase that was very similar to a picture that my mom had in our kitchen when I was growing up. So let's do this one today. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to work on these roses right here. And I'm actually going to take inspiration from the roses on the cover. I like how they're kind of light, and then this little pink is just kind of thrown in there. Kind of haphazardly, I like how that looks. So let's start with our lightest pink, our Pink Matter Lake. And we're just going to do, again, with really light pressure, so my hands are kind of back farther than they would be if they were up here, because you're just going to subconsciously press a lot harder if you keep your fingers towards the tip. So we're just going to give this a nice foundation. Alright, now that we have our nice foundation of that light matter pink, we're going to go back in with our Rose Carmine, and we're going to just kind of haphazardly, in a spiral kind of motion, I'm going to start from the center, just kind of add a little bit of layers outward. And it doesn't have to be the whole shape. maybe just on the edges. Are they the outside edges, the inside edges? Whatever you feel looks right. And don't worry about the transitions just yet. We're going to go back in with our lighter pink to kind of clean those up. Do some down here, and even in here. All right, so now we're going to go back in with that lighter pink, and again with really light pressure, I'm just going to go over those areas. Help blend in some of that rose carmine. I like to use circular motions too sometimes to get into those little spaces. I find that it gives you a little bit more control. And normally when I color, not for the camera, I'm moving the book around just to get into all the little spots. So, but use whatever method you think yields the best results. Alright, so I've done my foundation pink on these three other ones, and I kind of went back to this one, and I think I want a little bit more of this rose carmine to show up. So I'm just going back over the same areas that I did before, and I'm just giving them a little bit of an extra layer. And I'm kind of keeping my strokes in this spiral pattern, just because I like this motion or this movement on the flower. Kind of keep your eye moving around towards that center. And then I think the center should be a little bit dark. All right. I like it. Now you're going to take your Prismacolor colorless blender pencil and blend it outwards. So from your darkest pink towards your lightest, and just make sure that you leave a little halo of the lightest pink around the top of each petal. So just be careful how far you kind of pull your darker color. And this just takes away those harsh lines that sometimes using two colors can leave. Especially like right here, do you see that? So you can just sort of pull out all of those pencil marks with this blender. And if you don't have one, they're really easy to find. You can find them at your local arts and crafts stores, like a Blick or Joann's or Michael's, whatever you have in your area. I got mine on Amazon, and they were only like a couple of bucks. I want to say like between like $3 to $5 on Amazon for a 2-pack. And you will kind of go through it pretty quick, especially because I'll show you in a minute, but you kind of need to make sure that you're either sharpening it very often or you're rubbing it off very often. So there we go. This one's pretty good. what I'm going to show you is, do you see how this colorless tip has a little bit of pink on it? So you can do one of two things. You can either take your scrap paper and just sort of turn it and get all that pink off, or you can sharpen it. Because what will happen is if I have pink on the tip of this and then I go to blend something green or blue or yellow, it's going to actually rub off that pink onto my new color. So you want to make sure that your blender is always always clean. Alright, so I'm just seeing a couple little petals here that might need just a little bit more color. So don't be afraid to go back in. Right. Now we're going to take our, oops, no, I'm sorry, we're going to take our magenta color and we're just going to go in the very creases just to give a little bit of depth, because if you've ever looked inside the folds of a very complex petaled flower, you'll see that it's pretty dark in the folds, and you want to kind of give a little bit of illusion of that shadow. And I'm just keeping it very limited to maybe the width of like one pencil stroke, because we don't want that color out there too much. Almost like you're outlining. So I'm going to go back in with my blender, just in a couple areas here where I put it on a little bit more thickly, and I'm just going to spread it out. All right. All right, now we're going to do these ones up here, and we're going to take our bluish turquoise, and each one of these little petals is going to have a highlight and a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those on here, and then we'll kind of fill in the rest of the space. Just a little oval, and it should be wherever you think the light kind of hits it. So I'm kind of thinking that the source is from here. And you'll see why we do that in a moment. On these tiny ones, just kind of make it real small. All right, now we're going to fill in the rest of the space real lightly, making sure that we leave that white highlight there. Alright, so now we have a nice blue foundation across all of the little petals, and we're going to do two things. So the first is we're going to take our black, and you see all these little white highlights that I left here? You're going to take your black and you're just going to really, really quickly sort of make a line above each of the circles. Just a nice curved little arch at that top line here. Just to kind of highlight it. Try not to cover it up too much if you can help it. All right, now the second thing we're going to do is we're going to take the exact same color that we just used, this bluish turquoise, and we're actually going to use a little bit darker pressure here at the bottom. These up here will be a little bit lighter, but these down here will be a bit darker. So just use a little bit more pressure than you did on the layer before. And just where you think that this little flower would have gotten a bit more shadow. Like this to me looks like it's the underside. All right, now we're going to take our black and just go in here just a little bit. You can even kind of use this as like a dark blue. And then once we sort of bring it all out with our blender pencil, it'll just be shadow. So now remember what we said, that my blender pencil still has the pink on it. So I'm going to go ahead and take my scratch piece of paper and I'm going to get all this pink off. And then actually what I'm also going to do is I am going to sharpen it just so that it has a nice fine tip. I'm going to go from darkest to lightest, right over the black. And you see how it just kind of gets a little bit less black here? It's because it's combining with the blue and it's blending to just a nice little shadowed area here. I'm going to add a little bit more down here because this area should be really dark. And you can use a gray if you're a little bit too afraid to use the black. It'll give you that same effect, but maybe just a little bit less. Now we're going to go where our medium pressure met our light pressure, and we're going to follow upwards in that same motion. And don't worry if you want to change something or go back. You can always do that too. If you see some areas that need some touch ups. And you'll want to use a little bit less pressure as you go, so that these areas up here will be a little bit lighter. I have a bad habit of pushing a little bit too hard on my blender pencil. I just have to remind myself to ease up a little bit. Because you do not want to burnish the colored pencil pigment into the page, because then it'll be really hard to layer later on. And we're going to go back in really quick, some black, just to make this area a little bit more shaded. There we go. Now we have our nice little highlighted blueberry looking plant. And I'm going to do the other one. Let's do some of these leaves, and we're going to start with the light green. And let's do this one. We're going to just do a nice little bright highlight right here on this leaf. And then we're going to take our second green, the earth green yellowish, and just gonna slowly little circular motions around here where it meets. Let's brighten up this highlight just a bit. It's looking a little pale. There we go. We're going to take our black And we're just going to put a shadow down the middle. And then just where it meets the rose. Now we're going to take our blender pencil, and it's looking a little blue. So we're going to take off all of this off the tip. It's nice and clean. And then we're going to move this black into the green, being very careful not to get it into the highlight, just so we don't muddy up that section. And then do this whole half of the leaf. And then really lightly. There. And we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to keep the highlight in the same spot, coming from this direction. So we'll do this side of this leaf. We'll grab our darker green. And our black. Let's pull it into there, and then just where the rose would shadow it. And take our blender pencil and do the same thing. But again, try not to make this darker green too muddy. There we go. Then same thing here. We're just going to have the highlight kind of hit here in the middle. And then when you bring this up against the light green, just overlap it a little bit, just so it softens that transition. Brighten this up a little bit, just like we did on the first leaf. And then again, just where that leaf would kind of crease open like a butterfly, we're going to put a shadow in. And then where it would shadow from the rose. And with our blender, blend it out. Let's do this flower up at the top now, and I'm going to take my dark chrome yellow, and I'm going to do really lightly, just a nice little highlight in the middle of each petal, as lightly as I can. I'm just going to go over the orange just a little bit with my pink. Just to soften it a little bit, and you'll see that it kind of turns into more of like a tangerine kind of color. And then we're going to take our darker pink. I'm going to sharpen mine real quick. And then just kind of do about halfway between the end and the orange, overlapping that lighter pink. And then we're going to do the same thing with the ends. And it looks a little bit too different right now, but as soon as we blend it, it'll kind of transition a little bit more gently. A little too blunt. So now we're going to take that lighter pink again, and we're just going to go over this area between the darker and the lighter. You see how it kind of pulls that darker towards the light? Just like your blender pencil. And then do the same thing at the bottom. And then if it still looks a little bit too harsh, you can come back in with those circular motions, and that'll soften it just a little bit more. Now we're going to go in with our blender, and very carefully just blend outwards from the orange. Try not to get too far into the darker pink so that you don't grab too much of it with your pencil tip. You don't want to move too much of that. You're just going to move the orange outward, not the pink inward. I still think that this is just a little bit too thick, so I'm going to go back in with my darker pink, my rose carmine, and just bring it into the orange a little bit. Just like I told you not to do, I'm going to do it. There we go. I like that much better. Now we're going to take our magenta and we're going to do the middle. Getting in between the petals. And then we're actually going to do that same kind of technique that we did here. Right there, just to create a little bit of a highlight. And we're gonna take our black, go right over the top. All right, let's tackle these right here. And we're gonna do sort of a gradation of our pinks and our magenta. I might even throw this red violet in as well. And we're actually gonna leave the hearts here at the bottom white. So let's start with the light pink right here. Going past that second heart shape. We'll do this one and then we're gonna overlap a little bit so that there's just a nice transition. And then I'm gonna shape this one just a little bit more. Okay. Then we're gonna go into our magenta. Again, making sure that we overlap a little bit just because it'll make this edge not so harsh. I'll take it up a little bit higher. And then we'll finish with our red violet. Which is very close to the magenta, just a bit darker. I'm going to come back in with our rose carmine and just smooth over this transition a little bit better. Bring it down, just kind of shape it a little bit. I'll do the rest on the other petals. All right, let's use a little bit more of this beautiful dark chrome yellow, and our gradient will go upwards. So we'll go from the yellow to the rose carmine to the magenta, and we're going to do it on these flowers here in the corner. So I'm actually going to start with my darkest color, my magenta, and I'm just going to start going up the vein and then up the sides a little bit, and then filling it in lightly. Doing the same on all these petals, and try to vary the shape of your transition just so it feels a little bit more organic. So again, up the vein and then up the sides, and then filling it in lightly. Now we're actually going to skip ahead to the tip, and we're going to just use this dark chrome yellow to about here. About there. And then we'll come back in with our pink when it's all done. And that pink will kind of bridge both of these colors. And again, vary the shape. Okay. So I'm using the Rose Carmine. And when I go back in with the pink, I'm gonna just ever so slightly bring it up onto the orange, but then go over the magenta almost entirely. Just to fill in any little spots. And that'll help blend it. I'm gonna bring out the blender pencil for this probably, but we'll see how we do without it first. See how the pink kind of fills in all the white areas that I missed when I did my magenta? Just gonna get those little corners. Okay, now I take my blender pencil. My blender has some purple on it, so just to make sure that I get it all off, I'm gonna take my blender and I'm just gonna go over the purple and then over the pink and then just bring it up lightly into the orange because I don't want too much pink on that orange. And just kind of the areas where you think that it needs it. Can you guys see the difference? I don't know if it's really obvious on the video, but you know, just these ones have been blended. They just look a little bit more cohesive than these ones down here that haven't been. Alright, I'll do the other one and be back with you in a moment. Actually, let's go back in now. Let's go back in now and we're going to do this center section. And I think I want this one in mostly this dark chrome yellow. So I'm going to go really lightly over it, and then maybe I'll just put a little bit of the pink in the middle. So we're just going to give this a nice little light foundation. I always start with like a base layer, and then I kind of build upon it. Almost always. Now we're just going to really lightly just kind of work off of our base layer from the center. My dog always likes to come in when I'm filming, just to see what I'm up to. It's really cute. But then he makes noise and then walks away. Alright, now we're just going to take the magenta, just kind of go in a circle. And again, just building off of it, like that. And then I think I'm just going to use my magenta on these little circles, but I'm just going to do like a quick pass. So you're going to see some white areas in here, and I'll come back in with the yellow and fill those in so that we'll kind of have the yellow and the magenta peeking through. Just make sure you fill in all those spots. And on circles, I like to do a little circular motion. Just kind of keeps more control of the pencil. Alright. So I'm actually going to do just a little bit of a ring now around here. take my blender, just go in a circular motion. There we go. Now I'm going to do the other one, and I'll be back with you in a moment. So I've finished up all the flowers, and now we're going to complete the lettering in the word bloom here in the middle. And I think I'm going to use the greens. I think it'll balance it out nicely because there's a lot of heavy pink around the frame and a lot of blue. So I think I'm going to try to pull in these greens. So I'm going to use both greens, and we're going to start with the lightest one, the light green. And actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to sharpen it really fast. And we're going to start in the middle, and we're going to have light all the way through the middle, and then the darker green kind of towards the edges there. And I might even pull in some of the turquoisey blue, maybe just at the tips there. So let's start with our lightest color. And I'm going to pull it through to about there. And then there's going to be quite a lot of overlap, but I want a nice color transition. So I'm going to make this nice and long. And the same thing here, about the same proportions. So you're going to stop about here and here, just leaving just about that much for the other colors. Even in these small little sections. Yeah, I like the way this green is coming out. Just kind of brightens it up here in the middle. Okay, so now we're going to take the earth green yellowish, and we're going to just do the ends here. Overlapping, and as you get close to this transition point where the two colors meet, pull the pressure off of the pencil just ever so slightly so that it's just lightly going onto that so that you don't get that hard transition line. So medium pressure, light pressure, right up into that transition. Oops, I forgot this one. So I think I'm going to leave it like that. I don't think I'm going to put in the blue, but I am going to blend the colors together just a bit with my blender, and I've cleaned off the tip, and I'm just going to pull the color just a little bit here, just so there's a nice smooth transition. Every time I say transition, everybody take a shot. I feel like I say that a lot, I'm sorry. But you do. You want a nice smooth one. All right, and we're done. What do you guys think? I really like the way that this came out. Just for reference, let's pull back our scarf, our inspiration, and you can see how nicely that translated. I really like this. You know, if you wanted to, you could do the background as well in a nice maybe cream color, or you know, whatever you want. I'm not too fond of backgrounds just because I think they're really tedious, but that's certainly an option available to you. So again, we'll put it right next to the scarf, and thank you everybody for watching. Well, I'm quite happy with how that turned out. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to receive emails when I've uploaded new content, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, visit me at PencilStash.com to learn more about me and my projects. I'll also have both of the sheets that I showed you at the beginning of the video there available for download. Keep coloring, and I'll see you next time. Bye!